I'm Nora Callahan, 32, and I run a beat-up library in a hardscrabble coastal Maine town where the stink of fish and the crash of waves keep me from falling apart. The library's a wreck, cracked windows letting in salt air, creaky chairs that groan under tired bodies, books dog-eared to hell, but it's my lifeline. Kids scribble on tables, parents whisper about shutter canneries, and I'm there, handing out stories, running workshops, holding it together with spit and grit. If you've ever been kicked when you're already bleeding, you get me. This life, it's hard one. I grew up in a fishing village down the coast, raised by my mom, Ellen, a school teacher whose smile could thaw a February gale. She was my rock, my North Star, until I was 10, when she married Daniel, a carpenter with a quiet laugh and hands that could build anything, boat frames, tree houses, a kid's shattered heart. Daniel didn't just sign adoption papers. He took me in, called me his daughter. No hesitation, his voice warm like a wood stove on a bitter night. Those early years were gold, raw and pure. Mom would read me bedtime stories, her voice soft as sea fog, tucking me in with a kiss that smelled of lavender and chalk dust. I'd curl up, safe, listening to tales of knights and dragons, her hand smoothing my hair, her eyes crinkling with love. I'd fall asleep dreaming of castles, knowing she'd be there when I woke. Daniel would come home from the docks, sawdust clinging to his flannel, his boots heavy with the day's work. We'd sit in his workshop, the air thick with pine and oil, and he'd teach me to carve tiny wooden boats, his calloused hands guiding mine over the wood. Every nick's a story, Nora, he'd say, eyes crinkling, and I'd grin, feeling like I belonged. Clam bakes on the beach were our ritual, salt air stinging my nose, lobster sizzling over driftwood fires, Mom dancing barefoot to a crackling radio, her skirt swirling as Daniel tossed me a wink and flipped clams. We'd pile on the porch swing, its creak mixing with gull cries, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. One summer night, under a full moon, Daniel fixed my bike in the yard, his wrench clinking, telling me stories of his childhood running wild in the village, chasing crabs and sneaking lobster rolls. I soaked it up, my heart full, thinking, this is home, this is family. Another evening, when I was 9, I fell sick with a fever, shivering under blankets. Mom sat by my bed, her cool hand on my forehead, reading me Charlotte's Web until I drifted off, her voice a lifeline. She stayed all night, checking my temperature, her worry hidden behind a soft smile. Daniel brought me soup the next day, his big hands steady as he set the bowl down, joking about how I'd be back to raising hell soon. Their love wrapped me like a quilt, stitching me into their world. Those moments, Mom's stories, Daniel's boats, the clam bakes, they were my anchor, proof I was theirs, blood or not. Then Elise came along, my half-sister, born when I was 12. She was a curly-haired spark, all giggles and sticky fingers, trailing me like a puppy. I loved her, you know? We'd build sandcastles on the shore, her tiny hands patting lopsided towers while I spun tales of mermaids guarding the bay, their tails glinting in the deep. On rainy days, we'd huddle at the kitchen table, crayons flying, drawing waves and fish, her grin bright as a lighthouse. You're the best, Nora, she'd say, hugging me tight, her curls tickling my chin. One stormy afternoon, we built a fort from blankets in the living room, giggling as we hid from pretend pirates, her laughter echoing like bells. Another time, we snuck cookies from Mom's jar, crumbling them under the table, whispering secrets until Daniel caught us, pretending to scold but laughing instead. I thought we'd always be like that, sisters stitched together, a bond nothing could tear. But everything shattered when I was 20. Mom died in a boating accident, caught in a squall off the harbor. She'd gone out with friends, a rare day off, laughing as she waved goodbye, her scarf fluttering. The Coast Guard called at midnight, voice flat, capsized vessel, no survivors. My world collapsed, my chest so tight I couldn't breathe. I sank to my bedroom floor, clutching Mom's scarf, its lavender smell fading, and sobbed until my throat was raw, my eyes swollen shut. The loss carved a hole in me, a wound that bleeds quiet, even now. I drove to her grave a week later, a small headstone by the cliffs, the wind howling like it was angry too. I fell to my knees, jeans soaking in mud, and whispered, "Why'd you leave me, Mom? I wasn't ready." The sea roared, no answers, just salt and grief. I sat there for hours, tracing her name, tears mixing with rain, feeling so damn alone, like the world had turned its back. Elise was only 8, too small to grasp it. At the funeral, in a church thick with lilies and saltire, she clung to Daniel, her face streaked, curls limp. As we stood by Mom's urn, neighbors murmuring condolences, Elise turned to me, eyes wild with pain. "Why didn't you go with her?" she screamed, her voice a blade slicing the quiet. "Why wasn't it you?" My heart stopped, my legs buckling, the air sucked out of me. Daniel pulled her close, his face crumpled, murmuring, "She doesn't mean it." But she did. Those words burned into me, a scar I carry every damn day. I stood frozen, mourners staring, my hands shaking as I tried not to break. Elise started seeing me as the enemy, the stepdaughter who didn't belong, like I'd stolen Mom's love. Daniel tried to mend it, his voice firm but kind at dinner. "She's your sister, Elise," he'd say, but her glares across the table, her slammed bedroom doors, told me she disagreed. I'd catch her staring at Mom's photo on the mantel, fingers tracing the frame, her eyes hard, and I'd wonder where my little sister went, the one who hid in blanket forts with me, giggling over cookies. The next year, I started pulling away, my heart raw. I'd sit in my room, replaying Mom's last hug, her voice saying, "See you tonight, Nora," her smile bright as ever. I'd cry into my pillow, muffling sobs so Daniel wouldn't hear, the pain a weight I couldn't shake. Elise's bitterness grew, her words sharper, like she was testing how deep she could cut. One evening, at a neighbor's barbecue, she cornered me by the grill, her voice low so others wouldn't hear. "You're just Mom's charity case, not Dad's real kid," she hissed, her eyes glinting. The words hit like a slap, but I swallowed hard, turning away, the smell of charred burgers choking me. Daniel overheard, his face tightening, and he pulled her aside, his voice sharp. "That's enough, Elise." But her smoke stayed, a poison I couldn't escape. By 22, I was done. Elise's hate had turned our home into a battlefield, her jabs a constant drip eroding my sanity. Family dinners, once warm with Mom's laughter, were now tense, neighbors' chatter filling the silence as Elise shot me looks like daggers. One night, she leaned across the table, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're not even Dad's blood, Nora." The room froze, forks pausing, Daniel slamming his hand down. "Stop it, Elise!" I gripped my glass, knuckles white, and excused myself, my throat burning as I stumbled outside, tears hot on my cheeks. I couldn't keep living like this, walking on glass in my own home. I moved out, renting a shitty apartment above a bakery in town, the smell of bread mixing with salt air. It was a dump, peeling wallpaper, a leaky faucet, a mattress on the floor, but it was mine, a place to breathe. I threw myself into my job at the town library, a grimy building with flickering lights and shelves packed with worn books. I built reading programs for kids, book drives for families hit hard by the fishing industry's collapse. Watching a mom's eyes light up when her kid got a book, or a teen smile after a tutoring session, felt like keeping Mom's kindness alive. Work was my armor, a way to drown the pain of Elise's hate, to stitch myself back together. Daniel and I stayed tight, our bond a lifeline. We'd grab lobster rolls at a diner with sticky tables and cracked vinyl seats, the jukebox humming old country tunes. Or we'd sit on his porch, the swing creaking, talking about my library work or his latest project, a bookshelf for the community center, a cradle for a neighbor's newborn. "You're doing good, Nora," he'd say, his voice warm, eyes shining with pride. Those moments were my safe harbor, a reminder I was his daughter, no matter what Elise said. I timed my visits to avoid her, Sunday suppers when she was at college or out with friends. Her anger festered like seaweed on a rotting pier, and I couldn't face it anymore. I'd drive back to my apartment, the harbor lights blurring through my windshield, and feel a mix of relief and ache, missing the family we used to be. Elise's teenage years were a goddamn hurricane, tearing through everything. By 15, she was obsessed with outdoing me, the stepdaughter she refused to call sister. I was 27, settled into my library job, finding some peace in story hours, watching kids grin as I read about pirates and dragons, their laughter a balm. Elise saw my life as a challenge, something to crush. She'd brag about her grades, her sketchbooks stuffed with slick designs, aiming for elite art schools to study graphic design. "I'm gonna be a real artist," she'd sneer, tossing her hair, "not some librarian stuck in this shithole." Her words cut like a knife, sharp and personal, but I'd swallow my hurt, hearing Daniel's advice over coffee at the diner. "She's grieving, Nora. Give her time." I wanted to believe that, to see the kid who loved my mermaid stories, who drew fish with me under the table. But Elise was gone, replaced by someone who saw me as a rival, not family. When she didn't get into her dream schools, her rage turned vicious. At a tense family dinner, neighbors packed around Daniel's table. She smirked across the dishes, her voice loud enough for all to hear. "You're not even Dad's real kid, Nora. Why are you even here?" The room went silent, the clink of silverware stopping, Daniel's face hard as granite. "Enough, Elise," he barked, but her words landed, poison seeping into my bones. I excused myself, my hands shaking, and stood outside, the night air cold, my breath hitching as I fought tears. Neighbors whispered as I left, their pity a weight I hated. Elise's obsession with being Daniel's true heir grew uglier. She'd rave about his carpentry, claiming she inherited his creative spark, while I was Mom's leftover, not blood. It hurt like hell, but I was done fighting. I'd moved out at 22, craving peace, and I kept my distance, timing visits with Daniel when Elise was gone. Those moments in his workshop, sawdust thick, laughing over old stories or planning library events, were my refuge. He'd beam when I told him about a kid learning to read, or a book drive helping a family. "You're changing lives, Nora," he'd say, his voice a hug, and I felt whole, like I mattered. I tried to reach her once, stupidly hopeful, thinking maybe I could bring back the kid who loved me. For her college graduation, I saved up for a leather sketchbook, its pages thick, perfect for her designs. I wrapped it in blue paper, my hands shaking as I pictured her sketching something bold, maybe even smiling at me again. At Daniel's cottage, the air heavy with cedar and sea salt, I handed it to her, my heart in my throat. She ripped it open, her lips curling into a sneer. "I don't need your damn charity, Nora," she scoffed, tossing it on the counter like it was trash. I nodded, my throat tight, and walked out, the door slamming behind me. My hope died, buried under her hate. I was pissed at her cruelty, gutted for the kid who once drew waves with me under a rainy day table. Mom's death had broken her, a fracture I couldn't mend, no matter how hard I tried. I poured my soul into the library, running literacy workshops, delivering books to families in sagging trailers, their porches cluttered with lobster traps. I'd drive through the town's narrow streets, past shuttered fish markets and neon-lit diners, trying to fill the void. But deep down, I ached for the sister I'd lost, bracing myself for her next swing, knowing it was coming. Daniel's death hit like a rogue wave, stealing my breath, my ground. One night, we were on the phone, him chuckling about a dining table he'd built, its grain like the sea itself, Nora. He promised to show me, maybe carve my initials in a corner. I laughed, picturing his hands smoothing the wood, his eyes bright. The next morning, a stroke took him. I was 32, and the world split apart, my heart in shards. A neighbor called, her voice trembling, and I sank to my apartment floor, clutching a wooden boat Daniel carved for my 12th birthday, its edges worn from my fingers. I sobbed, my shirt soaked, my chest caving in. I remembered him dancing with me in the kitchen, twirling me to a scratchy radio tune, his laugh filling the room like sunlight. I drove to his cottage, tears blurring the road, the harbor lights smearing into streaks. In his workshop, I found his hammer on the workbench, its handle smooth from years of use. I held it, breaking down, my sobs echoing in the empty space, the weight of losing him crushing me like a wave. As his adopted daughter, I took charge of the funeral, digging through his binder of plans, my hands trembling, my eyes burning from sleepless nights. I stood at the funeral home, a gray-shingled shack by the harbor, greeting fishermen, shopkeepers, neighbors, my heart a bruise. Organizing kept me from shattering, picking a wave-etched urn, arranging wildflowers plucked from the cliffs, writing the eulogy until dawn, my pen scratching through tears. I poured my love for Daniel into every word, his bare hugs, his quiet wisdom, the way he made me his own, no question. The funeral was a haze of salt air and grief, the church packed with weathered faces, the scent of lilies choking me. I delivered the eulogy, my voice cracking as I stood at the pulpit, the stained glass casting shadows. Daniel built family where others saw walls, I said, my eyes flicking to Elise, hoping she'd hear, hoping she'd feel something. She stood apart, 25 now, her black coat too sharp for this town, her face cold as a winter sea, shaking hands like she was running for office. I felt her judging eyes as I spoke, my hands trembling, gripping the podium to stay upright. After, as we scattered Daniel's ashes into the ocean, the waves churning gray and wild, she muttered, "Real family doesn't need adoption papers," and walked off, her heels crunching on the gravel path. My throat burned, my chest tight, but I focused on the mourners, their stories of Daniel fixing a boat for a fisherman, building a cradle for a newborn, teaching a kid to whittle. Those stories kept me standing, tethered me to him. Later, alone in my car, parked by the cliffs, I punched the steering wheel, tears streaming, yelling, "Why can't you see me, Elise? Why can't I be enough?" My voice broke, raw and ragged, the sound swallowed by the roar of the sea. Back at Daniel's cottage, cedar-scented and creaking, I found his estate papers in a drawer, the pages worn from his hands, savings, the cottage, a battered pickup truck, and debts, loans for Elise's college, the mortgage, truck payments. I knew it'd be trouble, a storm waiting to break. Elise and I were the only heirs, and her silence at the funeral was a squall brewing, dark and heavy. I sat in Daniel's old rocking chair, its creak a ghost of him, clutching a photo from a library fundraiser, his arm around me, both of us laughing, the harbor sparkling behind us. My heart ached for the dad who gave me everything, a name, a home, a place to belong. I wanted to honor him, to keep his memory clean, but Elise's hate loomed like a shadow I couldn't outrun. I was scared, not of losing money, but of losing Daniel's legacy to her poison. All I could do was brace myself, praying I'd find the guts to face what was coming, my hands gripping the photo until the edges curled. A week later, Elise and I met at the cottage to sort the inheritance. I got there early, my stomach in knots, the estate papers crumpled in my sweaty hands. The place smelled of Daniel, pipe tobacco, cedar, a hint of sea salt, and every breath was a knife in my chest. Elise strolled in 30 minutes late, no apology, her smoke sharp as a fishhook. She wore a designer scarf, nails painted red, and leaned back in Daniel's rocking chair like she owned the damn place. "I'm taking it all," she declared, her voice dripping venom, her eyes glinting with triumph. "I'm Dad's real daughter. You're nothing, Nora, just the stepkid. It's greedy to want a dime." Her words hit like a fist, slamming into old wounds, but I was too damn tired to flinch. Years of her crap had worn me thin, each taunt a weight dragging me down. I thought of Daniel's laugh, his belief in me, the way he'd called me his daughter, and I stood taller, my jaw tight. "Fine," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "I'll renounce my share, but you never contact me again. Ever." Elise laughed, a cruel, barking sound, like she'd won a game I didn't know we were playing. "Like I'd want to," she sneered, tossing her hair, her scarf slipping to reveal a frayed edge. I didn't tell her Daniel had adopted me at 10, making me an equal heir in the eyes of the law. I could have fought for half, savings, cottage, truck, but what was the point? Money wouldn't bring back the sister who drew fish with me, wouldn't undo her hate. I wanted freedom, not a war over dollars. I left the cottage, my hands shaking, my boots crunching on the gravel drive, and drove to a lawyer's office in town, a cramped room overlooking the docks, the air smelling of fish and diesel. I'm renouncing my inheritance, I told Miss Harper, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes, explaining Daniel's adoption and my legal rights. She leaned back, her pen tapping the desk. You sure, Nora? This is significant. Savings, property, all of it. I nodded, my throat tight, my resolve hard. I'm done, I said, my voice low but firm. Signing the papers, my signature wobbly, I felt a strange mix of relief and grief, like shedding chains that cut as they fell. I was letting go of Daniel's cottage, where we'd carved boats, the truck we'd driven to clam bakes, but also Elise's toxicity, her endless need to erase me. I thought of Daniel's voice, warm and steady, calling me his daughter, and tears stung my eyes as I handed over the pen. I wasn't losing him, I was choosing peace. Elise could have the cash, the cottage, all of it, but she'd never have what Daniel gave me, a family that loved me, blood or not. 3 months later, I was deep in the grind at the library, leading story times, my voice weaving tales of dragons and sailors for kids with gap-toothed grins. I'd plan book drives, hauling boxes to families in sagging trailers, their porches cluttered with old nets and traps. A mom's quiet thank you as her kid hugged a book kept me going, a flicker of mom's kindness in their eyes. I'd blocked Elise's number, praying for silence, a clean break. Then an email slipped through, the subject line a single word, help. I hesitated, my cursor hovering, my heart pounding, before opening it. Nora, I'm screwed, Elise wrote, her tone desperate, stripped of her usual venom. Daniel's estate had come with savings, the cottage, the truck, but also crushing debts, mortgage, truck payments, loans for her college tuition. She'd burned through the savings, buying a sleek red convertible, designer bags, a high-end laptop to live up to Dad's name, she said. Now she was drowning, the debts piling like snow in a nor'easter. She'd borrowed from friends, who cut her off, then turned to loan sharks, their interest rates climbing like ivy, strangling her. You owe me, she claimed, as if I'd tricked her into taking the whole estate. You knew about the debts and let me walk into this. I deleted the email, my heart racing, anger hot in my veins. I'd warned her about the debts, my voice calm over the phone, laying out the loans, the mortgage, all of it. She'd slammed the receiver down, screaming, "You're not my sister." Now she was stuck, and somehow it was my fault. Bullshit. I sat at my desk, the library quiet except for the hum of a radiator, and stared at a photo of Daniel and me at a book drive, his arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling. I felt betrayed, not just by Elise, but by the idea that Daniel's legacy, his life's work, could twist into this mess. Her arrogance had turned to panic, but I wasn't getting sucked back in. Daniel's words echoed from a rainy afternoon over coffee at the diner. Protect your heart. Nora, you can't save everyone. I blocked her email, my fingers trembling, hoping that was the end. But deep down, I knew Elise was a storm that didn't quit, and I braced for the hit, my gut twisting with dread. The hit came a month later, and it was brutal, a full-on tempest. Elise started calling from new numbers, leaving voicemails that swung from pleading to vicious, each one a knife twist in my chest. Nora, I need $10,000. Your family, even if you're just a stepkid, one said, her voice cracking, desperate. Another hissed, $20,000, or you'll regret it, Nora. I deleted them, my hands shaking, but each message chipped away at my peace, like waves eroding a cliff. Then she showed up at the library, disheveled, her designer scarf frayed, her eyes wild like a trapped animal. I was leading a kids' reading circle, acting out a pirate story, my voice booming with ours for the giggling kids, when Sarah, a co-worker with kind eyes, pulled me aside. "Your sister's here again," she whispered, her face tight with worry. My stomach sank, a cold weight settling in. I'd built a safe space here, a place where kids could dream, where parents could breathe, where I could be more than Elise's punching bag. She was torching it, her chaos spilling over the one thing I'd fought to keep clean. I faced her in the parking lot, the air sharp with salt, gulls screaming overhead like they knew trouble was brewing. My hands shook as I crossed my arms, my boots planted on the gravel. "Stop this, Elise. You swore no contact." She leaned against her convertible, its red paint chipped, grime-streaked, and smiked, though her eyes were frantic, darting like a cornered fish. "Be grateful I'm treating you like a sister," she said, her voice mocking. "Give me $80,000, and I'm gone for good." I laughed, a bitter, jagged sound that echoed off the library's clapboard walls. "You blew Dad's savings, took on loan sharks, and now you're begging? This is your mess, Elise." Her face twisted, and she lunged forward, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You're just jealous because I'm Dad's real kid," she spat, her breath hot, her eyes blazing. That was it. Years of her taunts, her blame for Mom's death, her spitting on my place in our family, it exploded like a dam breaking. "You broke your promise," I yelled, yanking my arm free, my voice raw, shaking with rage. "You got everything, Dad's money, his house, and you still hate that he loved me. I'm done with you." I shoved past her, my heart pounding, and got in my car, slamming the door as she screamed my name, her voice cracking into the wind. Driving off, tears blurring the docks, the harbor lights smearing into streaks, I felt a surge of power but a deep, gnawing ache. I'd loved Elise once, when she was a kid who believed in mermaids, who drew fish with me under the table. Now she was a stranger, and letting her go hurt like losing Mom all over again, a fresh cut on an old wound. Elise didn't stop, her attacks relentless, a storm that wouldn't let up. She'd lurk outside the library during lunch breaks, her convertible parked crookedly, drawing curious glances from patrons heading in with their kids. She called my office line repeatedly, leaving messages that crashed into story times, her voice seeping through the walls as I tried to read to wide-eyed children. "Nora, I know you're there," one message sneered. "You can't hide from family." I deleted them, my hands trembling, but the interruptions rattled me, made me jump at every phone ring. Weiss, she started spreading lies around town, whispering to locals at the diner, the fish market, even the post office, that I'd stolen from Daniel's estate, that I'd tricked her into taking the debts. I'd walk into the diner for coffee, and heads would turn, whispers trailing me like smoke. Heard she cheated her sister, someone muttered, their voice low but sharp. My face burned, my chest tight, as I paid for my coffee and left, the bell above the door jangling like a warning. One night, her lies hit harder. I was grabbing a lobster roll at the diner, the neon sign buzzing, when an old fisherman named Joe, leaned over. "Heard you took your dad's money, Nora. That true?" His eyes were kind but curious, and I froze, my sandwich halfway to my mouth. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "Elise got everything." I walked away. He nodded, but the doubt lingered, a stain I couldn't scrub off. I left, my appetite gone, and drove to the cliffs, parking where I could hear the waves crash. I sat on the hood, tears burning, and yelled into the wind, "Why can't you leave me alone, Elise?" The sea didn't answer, just roared, but I felt so damn small, like her lies were stealing the life I'd built. I confided in my boss, Clara, a tough woman in her 50s who'd seen her share of family wars. We sat in her office, nautical charts on the walls, the smell of coffee thick. I spilled it all, Mom's death, Elise's hate, the inheritance mess, the rumors. My voice cracked as I told her about the diner, Joe's question, the whispers. "Nora, you don't deserve this shit," Clara said, her coffee mug steaming, her eyes kind but fierce. "You're carrying too much." She suggested a transfer to our rural branch on a small island off the coast, a tiny library serving fishermen, retirees, and a handful of year-round families. "It'll give you space to breathe," she said, her voice steady. I nodded, my throat tight, torn. Leaving felt like letting Elise win, like admitting defeat. But staying was killing me, each of her attacks a reminder of the family I'd lost, the home I couldn't keep. I spent a week wrestling with the decision, walking the town's rocky beaches, the wind biting my face, my hair tangled with salt. I'd stand at the water's edge, the waves crashing, and think of Daniel's workshop, the smell of sawdust, his voice saying, "You're enough, Nora." I thought of Mom, her laughter mingling with the gulls, her hand on my fevered forehead. Staying meant fighting a war I couldn't win, letting Elise's hate chip away at my soul. I drove to Mom's grave one evening, the sky bruised purple, and sat by her headstone, tracing her name. "I miss you," I whispered, tears falling, "but I can't keep doing this." The wind howled, but I felt a quiet resolve, like Mom was there, nodding. I chose the island. I got a new phone, kept my address private, and moved to the branch office, a one-room shack nestled among pines, its windows framing the ocean. The first day, I stood in the parking lot, fog rolling in, the air crisp with pine and salt. Relief and loneliness crashed together, a wave I didn't expect. I missed Daniel's voice, his hand on my shoulder, his quiet faith in me. Elise's attacks had shaken me, made me doubt my strength, but Clara's support and the island's silence lit a spark. I blocked every trace of Elise, new numbers, emails, anything she could use. I wasn't hiding. I was taking my life back, piece by jagged piece. Unpacking my books in the tiny office, I found Daniel's wooden boat in my bag, its edges smooth from my touch. I set it on the desk, my eyes stinging, and grieved the sister I'd hoped to save, the girl who'd once looked at me like I hung the stars. She was gone, and I had to let her go. The island was another world, raw and real, carved by wind and tide. The library was small, its walls lined with fishing logs, tattered novels, and faded maps, serving a tight-knit community of lobstermen, shopkeepers, and retirees who'd seen hard winters. My job was hands-on, delivering books to clapboard houses battered by storms, organizing literacy workshops in a drafty community hall, listening to locals' stories over coffee thick as mud. At first, I was an outsider, my mainland accent a giveaway, my hands too soft for their world. But their warmth cracked me open. "You one of us now," Amos, a fisherman with hands like leather, said, handing me a jar of homemade blueberry jam, his eyes crinkling. I smiled, my heart swelling, and tucked the jar into my bag, a small piece of home. I planned to return to the mainland once Elise's storm passed, a temporary escape, but the island changed me, helping a single dad find books for his shy daughter, her eyes lighting up as she read her first chapter book, or teaching retirees to send emails to their grandkids. It felt like honoring Daniel's legacy more than any cottage or truck ever could. I'd drive the island's muddy roads, my old hatchback rattling, the ocean a constant roar, and think of him, his laughter echoing in the pines. Mom's loss lingered, a quiet ache that surfaced on foggy morning walks, the waves whispering her name, but here I could breathe. I wasn't the stepdaughter fighting for a place, nor Elise's sister bearing her hate. I was Nora, someone who mattered, whose work touched lives in small, real ways. One evening, I tutored a teen named MIA, a quiet girl with a chipped front tooth who reminded me of myself at 15, lost, searching for something solid. She'd struggled with reading, her face red with frustration, but I sat with her, patient, guiding her through a short story about a girl who sailed the world. When she read a full page without stumbling, her grin was brighter than the harbor lights. "I did it, Nora," she said, and I hugged her, my throat tight, feeling like I'd given her a piece of the strength I was rebuilding. Moments like that stitched me back together, made me feel like Daniel was watching, nodding. Another day, I delivered books to a family in a sagging house, the mom thanking me with a thermos of coffee, her hands rough from cleaning fish. "You're a godsend," she said, and I drove away, tears pricking, knowing I was building something real, something Mom and Daniel would have been proud of. Nights in my rented cottage, a tiny shack with a wood stove, a sagging couch, and windows framing a starlit sea. I'd sit by the fire, the crackle mixing with the distant waves. I'd found Daniel's old letters in a box while unpacking, his slanted handwriting telling stories of his early days with Mom, their dreams for us. One letter, written when I was adopted, said, "Nora's ours, Ellen, our girl, no matter what." I read it over and over, tears falling, my fingers tracing his words. It hurt, but it healed too, reminding me I was his daughter. Always. I'd think of Elise, a pang for the kid she was, the one who giggled in our blanket fort, who believed in mermaids. I pushed it down, focusing on the life I was building, one book, one kindness at a time. I'd walk to the cliffs at dawn, the fog thick, and feel the island's strength seep into me, its tides a rhythm I could lean into. Months later, I heard about Elise through Lila, a co-worker who knew her college friend. Elise's reckless spending had caught up with her, a net she couldn't escape. The loan shark she'd turned to were relentless, garnishing her wages when she couldn't pay, their calls coming at all hours. She'd lost the truck, handed over to a repo man in the middle of the night, and the cottage was on the brink of foreclosure, its cedar shingles peeling, windows dark. Her design job, once her pride, was crumbling. She'd missed deadlines, botched projects, her focus eroded by stress and debt. "She's a wreck," Lila said, shaking her head over coffee at the library, the steam curling between us, barely holding it together. I nodded, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over me like a cold wave. I'd wanted Elise to face the consequences of her choices, to see the cost of her greed, but watching her life unravel wasn't satisfying. It was just sad, a hollow ache. I tried to warn her about Daniel's debts, my voice steady as I explained the loans over the phone. She cut me off, screaming, "You're not my sister." Now she was paying the price, not just in money but in the isolation she'd built, a loneliness of her own making. I felt no urge to reach out. She'd burned that bridge, its ashes scattered in the sea. The rumors she'd spread lingered, though, a stain on my name. One day, at a diner on the mainland, I overheard two women whispering about that Callahan girl who cheated her sister. I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips, my face hot. I wanted to stand up, to yell the truth, but I paid and left, the bell jangling behind me. Driving back to the island, the ferry rocking under me, I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white. "Screw her," I muttered, the words bitter. "She doesn't get to define me." The island's cliffs came into view, rugged and steady, and I felt a spark of defiance. I wasn't the thief Elise painted me to be. I was Daniel's daughter, Mom's kid, the woman who brought books to kids who needed them. That was my truth, and no rumor could take it. A year after moving to the island, I found my rhythm. The library's creaky floors my home, its shelves a map of stories that held me together. I lead reading circles, my voice weaving tales of adventure for kids who hang on every word. I help seniors with forms, their hands shaking as they thank me. I drive books to families in need, my car rattling along dirt roads, the ocean a constant roar. Each day is a step toward healing, a way to honor Daniel's love, Mom's smile, their memories a light guiding me forward. Their loss still aches, a quiet pain that surfaces on long walks by the shore, the waves whispering their names, but it doesn't own me anymore. I've built something real here, something mine, a life rooted in purpose, not pain. Elise's shadow has faded, a ghost I no longer chase. I hear she's still struggling, scraping by with garnished wages, her dreams of design stardom dimmed by debt and bad choices. I don't dwell on it, though a flicker of sadness remains for the girl she was, the one who believed in mermaids, who hugged me in our blanket fort. She chose her path, just as I've chosen mine, a road paved with small acts of kindness and the courage to let go. I'm not the stepdaughter fighting for a place, nor the sister bearing Elise's hate. I'm Nora Callahan, a woman who's found her purpose, who's learned that family isn't just blood, it's the people who see you, who lift you up, who share your story. The island taught me that its tide's a reminder that even the roughest storms pass, leaving you stronger. To everyone watching, thank you for walking this road with me through grief, betrayal, and the fight for peace. You've seen me break, seen me rebuild, and your presence is a light in the fog. If my story hit you, share it with someone who needs it, a friend, a stranger, anyone searching for a place to belong. Drop your story in the comments below. Have you had to walk away from family? Found a new one in the people who show up? Keep building your path, one step, one story at a time. And I'll meet you where the heart finds its harbor, where the waves sing of hope and the stars whisper of tomorrow.